We have our old friend Lovud. You don't really have any space in the Gemara. Now wanted to answer that when you stacked up the boards on the wagon, there would be space in between the stacks. That would be unroofed. So the Rosh Hashanah would be unroofed in that location. But now the Gemara is saying, since the spaces between these three were only a half an amma, which is less than 3 tfachim, because you have to have it divided in between three. So remember, we said anything less than 3 tfachim is lavud. We view it as if it's not there. So there was no halachic space. So we're back to our kasha. It looks like the Rosh Hashanah in the midbar was covered. Or says, me, Sabis Koshim Apusayu Avamanachlu, who told you that the Koshim were stacked up according to width? Achudan Manachlu. They were stacked up along their, remember we said they were 1.5 wide, and let's say the height of them was 1. So they were stacked according to their height, which is only 1 amma. And then, so the Gemara says, "Sof sumcha the keresh kamavi amsof." You could only have space of an amma because kamav most of our ball. You would put 4. If you had the wagon was 5 ammas, and each board was 1 amma the length, you could pile up 4 rows. 4 rows of 1 amma, so you have 1 amma left. Pashlu amsa. However, but if you take that amma, which is 6 tvachim, and kishani lambar beni ubeni, and you remember you got to account between 4 different rows, you have certainly less than 3 tvachim in between. Kalavudami. You again are back to the problem that you have a halachic. It's like it's all sealed, so it was all roofed. If it's all roofed, then basically you have a Rosh Hashanah that's roofed. Why then did Rav Shmuel? Why did Rab say that if you walk into the Superdome or the Astrodome, you'd be putter? There'd be an example of a roof for Shusarabim in the midbar by these wagons. So we're going to see that there was a machlokes whether, you take a regular 2x4. A 2x4 is a 2x4 on the bottom, and it's a 2x4 on the top. It's exactly the same. But there is a mandama that says that the boards tapered, that they were wider on the bottom and they tapered to a point to the top. Oh, if that's the case, then of course you could line up the boards where one side of the wagon, where they taper, there would be a lot more space between the boards, and that you could not use lavud to say that there's no space, and therefore we're dealing with Rosh Hashanah that's unroofed. Unroofed, that fulfills what Rav wants to say, that a roofed Rosh Hashanah is not considered Rosh Hashanah because it didn't exist in the midbar. But according to Manda Omer that says, no, this is like a 2x4. It wasn't tapered on the top. It was the same on this side as at this side. That's the case. And with the use of lavud, the whole wagon was covered. And you don't have it on. So therefore.
But even if tapered, if you lay them opposite each other, then they would basically ended up.
But we're not there yet. But right now, we're saying if they're not tapered, then you don't have any Rosh Hashanah that's that's what you want to say, that they were arranged with the taper, that it wasn't all the boards had their taper in one place.
Alternating sides.
They alternated it so that therefore there was always a cover.
Because otherwise they would also have a weight issue, because one side would be much heavier than the other.
So how did they arrange this? As Peter said, staggered. So Agabadagala, they arranged this on top of the wagon. But the Gemara is arguing, so even if you've created some space, Agala Gufa Makura Havi. The Gemara's Havamina here is that the wagon had a bottom to it. That the wagon wasn't hollow. That the wagon, you could put things in the wagon. Well, if the wagon, and then if we said that Tachteyen, underneath the wagon, was also Rosh Hashanah, then again, you have a problem that it was roofed. Or Shmuel be a Seidos. Shmuel says the wagons were hollow. There was no bottom, because remember, these boards were placed on top of the wagon. They rested on the walls of the wagon. You didn't need it's not like you put watermelon into these wagons. No, it was for the boards. So these wagons, so you relied on the boards to create the roof. Since we've determined that there would be always some space, then we have some space. And therefore, that's why Rav Paskins, that if you walk into a roofed Rosh Hashanah, like the Superdome or the Houston Astrodome, it would be potter because there was no example of it in the mikvah. So now that you brought up the crushim, we're going to learn some dinim about the boards. So crushim ilmatin oivin amal mumalin kalam v'olkan ketzba. So the Tanakh of this price says that it was tapered, these boards. They were not the same on the top as they were on the bottom. Shenema yusamim al rosho. And they learned that samim means tapered. Like it says, like we learned in Yoshua, when we talked about the Jordan splitting, it was also split in this way with a point. And that's how they learned. Tommy means here to coming to a point. From the Chanya Omer, he disagrees with Rabbi Yehuda. He says, Kashem Shem Lamatan Oivina. Amakach Lamatan Oivina, they were an Amma on the bottom and an Amma on the top. Shenema Yachta. It was equal. I've aksiv Tomim. What does he do with Tomim? You had to make these boards from one piece of lumber. You couldn't do it from two pieces. That's what Tommy means. Not that it comes to a point. According to Rabbi Yehuda, who learned that it came to a point, what does he do with the word yachtav, which seems to imply that both ends of the boards were equal? Or it says, Ahutalo l'shach chufi ma'adodi. That means you have to line up the boards in a straight fashion, not in a staggered fashion, side by side by side, so that it looks like a flat wall.
Had to be perfectly aligned, yeah.
Say it again?
They have to be perfectly aligned.
That's what I'm saying. It's not like it's not like you can't put a board like, the boards have to go like this. You couldn't put it like this, so that when you looked at the wall, it had to be a completely flat wall. That's what it means, yachta. So so according to Rav Nechemia, who says that the tops and the bottoms were equal, so on the side of the Arkasei Mishkan, on the sides, so they would put 6 boards, right? Each board was 1.5. So 6 times 1.5 is 9. But then you lined up on it. So they needed in the corners to put another board to fill up that. So otherwise it would, again, when you looked at it, you would see 6, 6, 6, 6, but the corners wouldn't be straight. So they had to have board. But that only makes sense if you could fill in the corner with a completely equal board that's equal on the bottom and the top, then it would look like a square. It would look, but if it had a taper, it wouldn't fill in the corner properly, says the Gemara. When you put it in the corner and the beam tapers, so it's not going to look like a perfect square. Where it says the shafalahu kiturin, so they like a pyramid. They angled it. They made it look so that it was complete. Even though it was tapered. So that's how he has to learn that it also looked complete because they angled it like a mountain. That's what a tour is, like a mountain. Okay. Then one of the features of these boards, remember there were rings that were braces that bracketed a third of the way up, a third of the way down, and then there was a middle bracket. That's why the boards didn't fall down. They were braced. Tana b'nei Saya Omeid. This Bria Chatichon was like 75 amas long. And somehow it snaked around the walls so that the Bria Chatichon went on three sides of the Mishkan. So that was completely benes. So Johnny wanted to talk about Nisim. The Bria Chatichon worked through Nes. Nobody could create something like that and have it fit like that. It's sort of bent on its own. Then it says, Vesa Mishkan Tase Eser Yirios. Now, there were multiple coverings that covered the Mishkan. One was called Mishkan. The other was called Ohel. Some were made out of goat skin. Some were made out of multiple different weaving things. So there were multiple cloths and tapestries that covered the Mishkan. So the first is the Mishkan. There's a Mishkan Tase Eser Yerios. They were made up by a combination of 10 sort of panels that were sewed together. Each panel, Orech HaYireh Achas, Shmona V'Esrim Bam were 28 amos. So, Shadi or Kai Lupusi the Mishkan, if you threw this thing over the Mishkan, and it was thrown over the length, the length of the Mishkan was thrown over the width, so from one end to the other was 28 amos. Dal Esr Le'igra, now the roof of the Mishkan was 10 amos wide. So therefore you have Tashal Gisa. Right, gentlemen? If this is the Mishkan, right? So you have the curtains going this way, right? Covering it. So it only hung 9 on this end and 9 on this side, because 10 plus 9 and 9 is 28. The length was 28. When you drape it over the Mishkan, you had 9 on one side, 9 on the other side. So now remember.
What stopped it from sagging?
Say it again?
What stopped it from sagging?
What do you mean sagging?
Well, in the
If
center,
you had it, remember, you're talking about if there's a roof 10, this is a wall of 10, and this is a wall of 10. And you have the curtain of 28.
Now that I understand. From the top, it would have sagged. It would have gone like that in the middle.
You want to say they're not calculating any sag in the top of it.
I was more interested in what stopped it sagging, not necessarily the calculation. I mean, it must have weighed.
Well, it weighed heavy. So if it lied flat and then it dropped, so maybe there was no sag there.
Hello.
Huh?
Showing a picture. Walter's showing a picture.
Yeah.
Yeah, but listen,
Yeah,
Ernie, were the sides anchored to the ground?
No. So remember. So the beams had a socket called the adanim, and they fit in. So the beam was 10 amas, but part of that, the bottom part was 1 amma was that socket.
Right.
So the Rabbi Yehuda, who
Yeah.
held
Hello, here's
that,
another. There's the socket. On the
no, but your socket means you have like a
inside.
It wasn't a 2x4. It was a 2x4. At the end of the 2x4 was like a peg, and the peg went into a socket.
Yeah, it shows you.
That's the socket. That the pegs went into those holes.
Yeah, that looks like an IKEA construction. Yeah.
Lego.
Now, based on our machlokas.
Walter, now I've got to put out that safer. I have it as well.
Yeah,
Based on our machlokas, that Rabbi Yehuda holds that it was tapered on the top, so then there would be more of a sag to the bottom. It would cover more. The only thing that you would see is migla amadadonim. It would cover all the beam, but it would reveal the socket. Rav Nechemia migla amadikroshim. Now, according to Rav Nechemia, where the beam didn't taper on the top, it was so the curtain would have to drape over it, so it would ride higher on. According to Rav Nechemia, it would reveal 1 amma of the kroshim on either side. So that's one. The Gemara is trying to find nafkaminas between this machlokas between Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Nechemia. This is one nafkamina. How much of the side of the Mishkan did you see? According to Rabbi Yehuda, you only saw the adanim because the rest of the beams were covered because the top of the beam was tapered. According to Rabbi Nechemia, you saw the socket as well as 1 arm of the kroshim that the curtain on that side didn't cover. Okay, that's where we are so far. But that's according to the width of that same tapestry. Shari Pusayla Orka the Mishkan. Now we have to do the calculation according to the length, right? The Mishkan was long and narrow. So we've now done the calculation between the curtain on this dimension. Now we want to talk about the curtain on the length dimension. Shari Pusayla Orka the Mishkan Kamavi Arba'im. So that the dimension of the tapestry was 28 by 40. That's why 28 by the width, we got rid of 10 of the top, 9. The length of this, it was 40 by 28. So we're looking at the length of the Mishkan with a length of 40 the Mishkan, which is, we're talking about a tapestry. So Dal plus equal the dimensions of the Mishkan was 30 by 10. So the roof is 30. So Pashalu Eser. So you have 10 remaining. L'Rav Yehuda Machasya Amadadani. We're talking about the back side of it, because remember the front of the Mishkan was open. So we're talking about the western side, which was covered where the Kodesh Kadoshim was. Pashalu Eser L'Rav Yehuda Machasya Amadadani. Same thing. It dropped 10. It would cover even the Am of Nadonim. But Rav Nechemia, since the top of the beam was not tapered, was full, so the curtain would go off 1 amma more, you would reveal 1 amma of the Adonim. So you wouldn't see any board according to either of the Shita. According to Rav Yehuda, you wouldn't see anything. According to Nechemia, you would see the socket. Oh. Now, that deals with the coverage of the Mishkan, based coverage of the kroshim by the Mishkan. Again, I'm using the word Mishkan to refer to the special covering that was woven, that was used to cover the Mishkan. Besides that cover, you had Vasisa Yirios Izim La'oel al Mishkan. There was a goat skin covering as well. Orech HaYiriachas Shloshim Ba'ama. So that was 30 ams. So Shadi Urkai Lepusi the Mishkan Kamhavya. So if we throw this, if we look at this regarding the length of the Mishkan, you have 30. Dal Asr Le'igra. Now, again, I guess we're looking at, the width. So the width is only 10, and you have a curtain of 30. So dal esr le'igra pashul esr l'hagis of esr l'hagis. So you have the overhang is 10 on one side, 10 on the other side. Again, l'Rav Yehuda michsei amad adoni. It would cover everything. You wouldn't even see the socket. L'Rav Nechemia migla amad adoni. It would reveal one of the amas of the adonim because it was not tapered. Tanya namahachi. There's a brisa to support exactly what we're saying. It says ve'amami zeh ba'odef. There was an amma extra. L'chaslis amma shladanim. The Rav Yehuda. That extra was to cover this socket. L'chaslis amma shel krushim. No, just so you wouldn't see any of the krushim, although you could see the socket. That takes care of the Uriosizim according to its width. What about the length? So the dimension of the goat skin was 44 by 30. We dealt with the 30 looking at the width of the Mishkan, right? It hung since the roof was 10 wide and it was 30 dimension. It hung 10 on one side, 10 on the other side, covering everything or covering just up to the adan, depending on whether it was tapered or not. Now, according to the length, you have 44. Now, what is the dimension of the length of the Mishkan? It's 30. So Dal plus Le'igra, the roof is 30. So you have 14. So 7, you have 14. Dal Tarti L'Chafla. Now, on one side, the bottom was folded. So there was almost like the Mishkan had a train behind it, like a wedding gown. So there, it's not that the curtain came down. It came down, and then there was like a double fold there. Dal tarti lekafel. 2 of the amis were used for this fold. Pashalu tartisre. You have 12 left. Because he said you would see it drag. If you hold that the beams on top are not tapered, there wouldn't be any extra. Or it says tisrach mechabre seha. Rashi says chatzei rasrucha mechabre seha ama mimena lechasus adonim va'ama nigreres. According to his chart, there was also a little bit of drag, not as much, according to Rabbi Chemi, but a little bit. That's enough because the Tana of Rabbi Shmuel, Laba Mishkan Dom, Liisha Shemalechus Bashuk, Vishipuleh Malchinachwet. This is like a woman walking in the market. I guess she's wearing a fancy dress, and it drags behind her. And the Mishkan was, I guess, compared to that. Okay. We'll stop here. We'll start tomorrow with the new Bryce. Okay?
Okay, sorry, late.
8 o'clock.